radio con valores cristianos y cada vez más cerca de ti. Descarga la app hoy.
Somos 92.5 FM y 11:30 AM, la nuestra.
Siga Broadcasting. Le informa que el siguiente programa es un programa pagado y el contenido total es responsabilidad de quien lo produce o anuncia.
Bienvenidos a Red Lip Latina Radio, the bold, unapologetic voice of San Antonio and beyond. We're turning up the heat on local, state, and national issues while breaking it down with real talk and real passion. From the streets of San Antonio to the halls of power at the White House, we're keeping you informed, engaged, and fired up. And because patriotism is more than just words, we're shining a spotlight on real change makers, the fearless, the hardworking patriots making a difference in our communities. This is Red Lip Latina Radio, where we speak loud, proud, and with a little extra spice. All right, you hear that? We got the Trump victory dance going right now. Just dance. Anyway, welcome back to Red Lip Latina Radio. My name's Cindy Dominguez, and I have my beautiful co-host, Jessica. And then welcome back to the triumphant trio, Ms. Genevieve Sims.
Yes.
Glad to have her back. And then today we have a special guest. So I'm going to sit back since I already know this fella, and I'm going to let Jessica and Genevieve take over. Okay, guys?
Okay, so I'm going to have an introduction for Joe Castro. At just 18 years old, Joe made history as one of the youngest city council members in Texas. Since then, he's built a reputation as a freedom fighter, policy advocate, and community builder who believes in empowering everyday Texans. He currently works as a grassroots engagement director with Americas for Prosperity in Texas, helping connect citizens with the tools to make real change in real local communities. So welcome to the show.
Hey, super excited to be here. Thank y'all for having me. Couldn't think of a better way to spend my evening than with some amazing, beautiful ladies. Y'all are so nice. And so thank y'all so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I heard a little accent there. What was that tone you said? Say it again. Say it again. Let me hear it again.
Are we getting the spicy part already of the show?
So nice, ladies. We love you. We love you.
I love that.
Thank y'all so much for having me. Super excited.
So I have a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So you ran for city council at the age of 18.
Yes, ma'am.
How did that come about?
It's a kind of a crazy story. I always had an interest in politics. I remember one day I was in junior high. I was coming home from school, and my dad was yelling at the TV. And I was thinking, what the heck is my dad yelling at the TV for? And he was yelling at the news. Like, the news just riled him up, and he was getting frustrated about this event that was happening. And I was like, so then I started listening. Mm-hmm. And from that, it was a show on Fox News, and me and my dad, we would watch Fox News almost every night after that. And I quickly realized in high school that, the national politics is great, state politics is fun, but if you want to make real change, that's in local politics. Mm-hmm. And I always was frustrated, especially I live in a small town, about 30,000 people in Alvin, Texas. And I love it. It's provided the American dream that I have. It's helped me not become a statistic at all, be able to break barriers. And I was always frustrated in high school when people were just yearning to get out of town. Like, oh, I can't wait to get out of town and I never come back. Mm-hmm. And that kind of always upset me. I was like, man, this town ain't that bad. And I knew that when I graduated high school, I wanted to be able to prove that. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be able to pay the path forward so other families wouldn't have to worry about where they're going to move next to. I want this to be a lifetime home for families. So I decided I can't just sit around, tweet, or say something on Instagram or Facebook. I need to get involved. So I decided to run for council. I had a vision laid out that to make Alvin the best place to live, work, and worship. And I drew two other opponents, went into a runoff election. My opponent was 70 at the time. Wow. And I was just an 18-year-old.
Wow.
And I'll be honest with you, I did not make it about age. He did at times. He said, well, don't vote for the 18-year-old, which honestly, I probably would have listened to it as well. I was like, heck, yeah, I'm not voting for the 18-year-old.
I'm not voting for me.
Yeah, I was like, God, that's kind of crazy. I ain't voting for that. But I never made it about age. I always made it about the issues. And I remember telling some people on my campaign team, because they got really beaten up. I got really beaten up. My parents got beaten up about it. And they're like, well, we have to say something. I was like, nah, let's not. Like, let's just stick with our message. And that's exactly what we did. We just stuck with our message of just, improving infrastructure, economic development, and reducing the tax burden. Just being a fiscal conservative. And people resonated with that. And they were yearning for a change. They were yearning for, a little bit of energy. And, so I would serve 3 terms on city council. Exemption, and the tax burden was just too heavy on our residents, and so we came with a plan to increase the homestead exemption all the way to the max, and that's something I've been very proud of. Putting more money into people's pockets. I also proud of our first got on council. We had some city staff that were really against our national motto, police vehicles. And for those who don't know, our national motto is "In God We Trust." And I spoke with some of our police officers, and they're like, we want this, because we do trust. This is our national motto. Like, this is something we want. And so we were able to put that. Finally, we're able to put that on. We put it in the council chambers. We put it into our first responder vehicles. And that was a really good accomplishment of just saying, like, hey, this is our values here in Alvin, Texas, and we're not going to shy away from it. And so that's just something I'm also proud of. And I'm also proud of the things that we also didn't pass. Like, there's a lot of things that we did that was good, but there's also a lot of things that we kind of protected from, and stuff that we fought against, right, to help preserve Alvin, that I'm also proud of as well.
That's awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was it like for your parents? Like, you growing up, going through that?
It was interesting because I didn't really know how to tell my parents that I was filed to run. They always knew I had like a passion for politics. And I did not tell my parents until after I filed to run for office that I was running for office. And so I remember came home and I said, "Hey, Mother, I got some news." And she was like, "What?" And she was like, "What happened?" And I said, "Well, I decided to run for city council." And I was at the community college at the time. She said, "Oh, student council?" I said, "No, city council." And she was like, "Are you sure you want to run for that?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure." And she was just, honestly, she was concerned about her baby, right? Like, with politics comes a lot of other negative connotations. And so my parents became very supportive quickly after, and like they were knocking doors, helping me, put out signs. They were like the engine behind the scenes helping me out. So I could not have done it without their support. They've been incredibly supportive.
Love it. Did their friends come and help?
They put, yeah.
They did. Yeah. Because in my family, we put the whole family to work. My kids been working campaigns since they were like 3, 4, and 6.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. See, that's something I wish I would have, probably would have thought of. But, the first person my dad voted for, he always had a political opinion. Mm-hmm. Like I told you, like he would watch Fox, but he never voted. And so the first person he voted for was me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I told him, I was like, "Dude, you got to get registered to vote. Like, you got to go out and vote." And he's like, "Nah." And I was like, "Well, you can't complain if you don't vote." Because, he's always the first to complain about something. And, and so they, and then my mother, before she voted, she voted in like in the 2008 election, and like she voted for Obama. And so then she quickly realized, she's like, okay, that was not a good choice for our country. And so, but she just didn't really get active. She didn't really get involved until I just started speaking up and saying, "Hey, this is what we should do."
So I have a question. Okay, so one of my friends from a different org, very well-known org, she said online, all the people on Facebook, she looked up their voting history, and she said, all y'all are loud. Y'all don't even go vote. You don't even know what the issues are, but they're the loudest ones in the room, right? Mm-hmm. So I know you said that your parents got a little bit ahead of it, and you did too. At 18 years old, I can't even imagine. I wish one of my kids would come home at 18, because you could be my kid, right? I wish one of my kids would come home and say, I decided to run for, and I don't know if I'd be proud or scared.
Yeah.
Or both at the same time, but I would totally back them up. Like they helped me. I know that your family helped you too.
Yeah, they were scared for sure.
Jessica made a comment earlier when I was talking about you to her on the phone, and she said, tell me about the mother that raised him. Remember you asked me that. That's a great question. Ask him the question.
Because I wanted to know, like who, I guess, kids your age don't do that. They're looking at other stuff, doing other things. So I was very curious about how you were raised, because I also read some of your posts on Facebook, and you emphasize God a lot. So how did all that come about?
Wow, that's the first time anyone's ever asked me that. It's kind of got me emotional thinking I was literally on the phone with my mother in the lobby while we're meeting. Mm-hmm. So very unconventional. Like I mentioned how like Alvin helped me not become a statistic. My mother, she had me when she was in high school. And I make a joke that I'm the best mistake she's ever made. And we laugh at it. But, she has really instilled a lot of like good conservative values in me. She actually, without getting too deep right now, but when she had me in high school, she was super scared to tell my family. You emphasize like how my family is very centered around the good Lord, our Heavenly Father. And she was really scared. And my biological father persuaded her to go get an abortion. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to go get an abortion. And somehow my biological father said, well, we're going to pay for it. Or he said, I'm going to pay for it. And you just go. So my mother, she went to the clinic, and she's just scared, just didn't know what to do. And she went to the clinic, and they did the
like a sonogram?
Yeah, just sonogram, ultrasound. The ultrasound. They did the ultrasound, and she just broke down in tears. And she said, "There's no way I could take away one of God's child from this earth." And so she left that clinic. She said, we're not going through. She told my grandma, my great grandma, what happened, and they were incredibly supportive. I was there for my mother's high school graduation. There's pictures of that. And my great grandmother raised me for the first 5 years of my life, where my mother went to go get an education and do that. I was really grateful that I had some great grandparents that were like, okay, supported my mother. They said, okay, you go worry about your education, worry about providing for myself and my siblings, and like just do yourself to live the American dream. Do what's good for you and your family. We'll watch Joelle, and my sister as much as we can and help you out. And just from that alone, really just somebody like my great grandmother, one of my best friends, and she instilled just a lot of those timeless conservative family values into me, just at a very young age. I'm just incredibly grateful for that. And my mother was, I think about all three. I think I have some of the strongest women in my life. I have my mother, my grandmother, and my great grandmother, who are some of the hardest working people I know. My mother has worked so hard for me to never have to be worried about where my next meal is coming from. Never had to worry about, going to get clothes if something were to happen. Never having to worry about what shoes to go, to wear at school. Like, she worked so hard for that, and she had to worry about that stuff when she was growing up. Same thing as my grandmother, my great grandmother. They migrated here from Mexico legally, and my great grandmother retired. She's 84 now. She's 85 now, and she retired when she was 77 from Christus Hospital, and she was a custodian. She never made more than $10 an hour, and she would clean toilets, and she refused to take any help from the government, and she learned how to stretch a dollar and to make that her American dream, right? And she was able to provide that for our entire family. Those like hard work ethic. And so that's really just where I think I've just molded to like what has like just my basic foundation. Now I still have a lot to learn. I'm not saying I'm just 26, right? But those are the basic foundations, just who I am and where these things come from.
That's incredible. You could really see the framework that they've set in you and instilled in you, and it's absolutely incredible, and they definitely deserve the credit for that.
Thank you. Well, they do. They deserve that and more.
Absolutely. Now, obviously they're the ones that are motivated you and kept you focused. Is there anybody else in your life as well that you kind of lean into as a mentor?
I try to think of the mindset of learn from everybody. I can't think of one specific person that I idolize and that is like my mentor, because there's so many things. I mean, you have my political life, you have my personal life, my work life. So like, there's so many like different aspects of my life that like I can think of people who like have heavy influence on those. Like I think about my bishop. I think about my old bishop. I think about some of my like really close friends that push me, that hold me accountable. Like tell me when I'm doing stupid things. I think about my great grandmother who just reminds me of just grace. Yes, ma'am.
How many?
Oh man, I have 5 siblings, all half siblings. I have. Oh man.
Okay, well, that's a good
Yeah,
try
yeah.
there. So you have to kind of like help them too.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, because it's evident that he has like empathy and compassion, for others, and you show love and grace to others too. So,
Well, thank
especially to me, right?
Yeah, and you do the same to me too. But and it's not always easy.
Yeah.
I would say like there's some times where like you feel challenged, like man, really, sometimes it's a little hard to give people grace. But someone said to me, and I think I told you this recently, but someone said to me about a year or so ago, it says, Joel, I was really hard on myself, and it was my bishop, and he says, give yourself the same grace that Christ gives you, and also give people that same grace that Christ gives them. And that could be incredibly hard, right? Like Scripture says, forgive someone 70 times 7, right? And so it can be really hard to do that, but at least we're trying, right? At least we're trying to show that love. And so we're not perfect, but the least we could do is just try to love one another, because our world would be a lot better place if we did.
Exactly. So I'm glad you're going to stay here with us, because I had talked to Genevieve and Jessica about 2 days ago or 3 days ago, and I said, I just have this topic. I wouldn't say topic, like it's a Bible study, of who's helping you carry your cross. Who's in your life? Are they a burden on your back, or are they helping you? And right now, you just talked and mentioned about a whole lot of empowered women who empowered you. And it does take a lot of people. You grab a little from here, a little more from here. This person invested in you more. This person, drains you. But, somehow you learn from each person in a different way. And so it sounds like those people helped you, not only grow to the man that you are, but they also helped empower you, and you learned from them, and they helped carry your cross. They helped carry your mom's cross. They weren't a burden. You were not a burden on them because they loved your mom, and they said, Mom, we're going to help you raise your child. That's so beautiful, like my abuelita raised me too while my mom and dad were at work, so I know exactly what it is to have to stay home. They were I wouldn't say the babysitters, but the abuelitas didn't have a choice. They were like, I'm taking care of them.
Yeah.
You're not saying I'm nowhere else. They're coming right here to me.
Exactly. There's no other option.
There was no.
When you're saying that, I just have to the way you just worded something reminded me of my dad, right? Technically he's my stepdad.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about unconditional love and just accepting someone, I've been amazed, and sometimes I think about this a lot. He came into my mother's life when I was 3 or 4,
Mm-hmm.
and he took us in, me and my sister. He took us in and loved us unconditionally and just treated us like he was his own. And I just think to myself, how remarkable. He just brought us into his house and just raised us like his own, loved us like his own. And just for someone to do that, I've never once thought of him as a stepdad. I always thought of him
Mm-hmm.
as my dad, because he's been that
Mm-hmm.
figure for me. And I had some incredibly remarkable women in my life, but for someone to have that sort of love, and that's a hard thing to do, right? I don't know if I could imagine. And I know you had some sort of taking in someone else's, a kid that's not necessarily your own, that.
Mm-hmm.
That takes a special kind of someone to do. And how can I learn from that?
Mm-hmm.
What qualities in that sort of personality that I can learn to become, more Christ-like and to be a better Samaritan.
Wow, that's impactful. Genevieve? Yes.
Absolutely. When you're with the right people, you're going to find, the challenges that you face actually don't seem as hard because they're helping you lift that cross. And God knows exactly what type of friendships that you need, and he brings them into your life at the times that you need them the most. And it's up to us to have that discernment to know where their placement and position in your life is going to be, because there's going to be different seasons where you just need somebody to walk alongside you quietly. Then there's going to be times where you need somebody to push you, and then times that you need to be protected. And God knows exactly what you need in those seasons. And as a leader, as a community leader, it's very important to surround yourself with a good counsel. And to be able to have that type of leadership examples to also model after, I think that's absolutely impactful.
Yeah, definitely. So every one of us has, a cross to carry. We have responsibilities, we got struggles, we got spiritual growth, but we have purpose, right? But God never intended for any of us to carry it alone. So it's amazing that you have a long list. I have a long list too, but sometimes I feel like certain people are a scaffold for at the moment. They help you, pick up that cross, and then other times you kind of have to hand it off I wouldn't say a baton, but somebody else comes and picks up the pieces because somebody else got tired or they were only meant for that period of time. One time when I was in the financial industry, they told me sometimes people come into your lives, they're like an Uber. They're only supposed to get you from one point to the other, and then you have to get off. And if you don't get off, where are they taking you? They're taking you to the wrong direction, to the wrong places. So we kind of have to see sometimes relationships or people who come by our sides as either short-term or long-term. Are they here forever? Are they here for a season? Are they here just for one ride to one point A, point B? When is it time? You have to know the discernment and the time. So you missed a good show about, I think it's 2 weeks ago, we talked about the ravenous wolf. And do y'all want to fill in anything on the ravenous wolf before I go in? Because I don't think you watched that episode.
I was calling you out.
No, but
I don't know what you're talking about.
There's
I
a
don't know.
spice.
yeah, I love it. So,
That's the red Lip Latina.
Yeah.
did you watch the show? Wait a minute, it's
Let her
cut.
flash.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I just remembered you didn't watch.
Yeah.
No, but we talked about the ravenous wolf, and that's somebody who's by your side that may not have good intentions, but they know, oh, I better be by Joel because he knows the governor. He knows, the state rep, and I want to be able to be at that level too. And then boom, before you know it, they were only using you, or they only, they meant some sort of malice, or they weren't maybe not trying to get to you, but to your best friend right there. They want to access, and sometimes we learn those things, like the 5, 10, 20. We learn those things on how to get closer to people, but it's with intention, like you have to use discernment to know if they're the ravenous wolf in the sheep clothing. Are they here to devour you because you're a good person? Or are they here, like Jessica has like literally saved my life. Are they here to pick up the pieces and help you,
What you said reminded me of something my great-grandmother told me one time when, I don't know, we're going somewhere. I think we were just, I was spending the summer with her. And I think my aunt was also with us, and there was someone asking for money. And I remember, like, my great-grandmother would always pray for that person. But, like, if she always had cash or change, she would always give them that person something. And I remember my aunt at the time, and I was young. I don't really remember the gist of the conversation, but I remember her saying, like, why would you do that? Like, they're just going to use it for drugs or something. And she says, that's not my problem. Like, I can't control that. Like, what I can control is giving someone, like, an example of Christ's love. And I just, like, I'm reminded, like, it's how, like, in the last days, Judas portrayed Christ, right? And, like, so many others portrayed him. But at the end of the day, forgiveness and grace is still available. And so we just have to try to be that example of that love. Because if someone has that ill intention of doing something bad or just using you, that could be a very good opportunity of showing them what being a good example, setting a good example, what exactly Christ's love is and what it isn't. And so that's when you were just saying that's just what just popped in my mind.
Yeah. It's true. And then I had heard this quote before where he said that before God elevates you, he's going to expose everyone's heart around you. And gives you that insight so that you can discern, because there's certain types of people that are going to try to drain you and distract you from your purpose. And so for the leaders that are listening to this, I actually wrote this down because when we were talking about it, already love, period. Being strong at all times is not sustainable. Strength isn't about never breaking down. It's about knowing where your help comes from. Your vulnerability is not weakness. It's an invitation for God to move. You've been overlooked, but God saw it all. The thank yous that never came, the late nights, the silent tears, heaven took note. Your labor and love was not in vain, even if people didn't acknowledge it. Jesus is the strongest friend you need. Let him carry you. Let him restore you. Let him be the one you run to when you have nothing left. You don't have to break to be seen. He sees you now.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I haven't heard it put that way before. You said something about earning love. I think that's probably, like, I tell you what, I have a hard time saying no, right? Like, I like, when someone asks for something, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Like,
Right.
what do you need? Like, happy to help. And sometimes, like, at what cost, right?
Right.
And it's hard for us, like, to determine what that cost is. Like, where do we set those boundaries? Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. And it's just something, as somebody who's very aware of other people's needs, you're very quick to say yes. I'm in that same boat too. But where you're spending your time, that's where you have to really figure out where God's positioning you. Because when you're spending time with the people that he's telling you, you're supposed to be over here, but you're spending time with the wrong people, you're losing out on the impact that you're supposed to have on this side. So we're always going to have that in us to want to be people pleasers, but that's not the calling that God has on leaders. You know, we have to sometimes stand out, and sometimes that means that we have to take charge or say yes to other things when people say no to it, just like you did in your county, to be that leader that people are looking for. And with that comes a certain mantle and a certain calling, and that purpose is very different. And they say right before elevation comes isolation. And that means that's the time that you are focused on God, on what he's called you to do. In order to have impact, you have to know the voice of your Father.
So we're talking about relationships, right? And who's helping you, who's around you, who's helping you. Well, a few years back, I used to make excuses to God and say, oh, I know she's my friend, but I don't do the things that she does, but she's still my friend, Lord. Like, I'm not there doing that. And God would tell me, but you can't be around her because she does that. And I would say, no, we're just playing dominoes. You know, like, there's nothing wrong with dominoes.
Yeah, there's no
right?
money involved.
Right?
I promise. Yeah.
Like, and the other things that they do in the back rooms, I'm not going to those back rooms. Yeah. But he was like, no, you can't be around that, right? So it says, I'm going to read 1 Corinthians 15:33. Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. And we've heard that over and over. Yes. You know, people have that tattooed on them. Anyway, healthy God-centered relationships, they should be encouraging your walk with God and not distracting you from it, right? So who are your distractors? Who are your time wasters? You know, there's somebody around. You're thinking about somebody right now. You know, who's speaking life back into you? This is what I had told Jessica. I was like, I feel like I'm so drained, you know? I feel like, and I gave her the example, you know, on Titanic, the movie, the priest the bow is breaking and the priest is holding everybody. And
they're playing near to my God to thee.
Yeah, and he's holding on to everybody, like saying their prayers, but who's holding on to him? And she said, nobody, just God, you know? Who's speaking life back into you? Who are they just gossiping to you? Are they just causing drama in your life? It's just right. Something, because you're thinking of people in your mind right now. You know,
right. I'm thinking a lot of things.
You know, do they pray for you or do they pray on you? Like Prey. You know, are they what is it? Pastor John Hagee says this story about the prairie chicken, that there was an eagle egg and it hatched and it was a baby eagle, but it was hatched amongst the prairie chickens, and the prairie chickens raised the eagle so that all his life the eagle thought he was a prairie chicken, so he would peck the ground and eat the food they ate, and you know, just like roam in the dirt and scratch, and you know, just be like wasting away. But one day he looks up and he sees a big eagle flying, and he's like, wow, you know, look at that majestic bird flying. And the prairie chicken said, oh, you can never be that. You're one of us. You're a prairie chicken. Because he had conformed to being like those prairie chickens. He didn't even know he was an eagle, you know? So then somebody else told him, look at the eagle flying. You should be flying up there, but you don't. You're listening to the wrong people. You're listening to all the prairie chickens, and you're an eagle. You should be flying higher than all of them. And I always think about that, like when I stay away from them. They're prairie chickens, you know, or they're crabs in a bucket, you know. Yeah. They're 1%ers. You've ever heard those?
Yes. Yeah.
So those are all the people you gotta stay away. You know, are they holding you accountable, or are they holding you hostage? Because they don't want you to grow and flourish, you know? Think about those friends. I mean, I know I see your mind thinking. Your mind's turning right now. So I see you're like, oh, you know.
It's like people have to help you carry your cross, you know? Like, we all need that help. Like you said, we don't just do it by ourselves. So everybody has to help each other out. If people are not helping you, if they're just barely holding, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know it sounds very metaphor. Sorry, it's my Mexican
Metaphorically,
accent. Metaphorical. Is that the word?
Yeah, metaphorical.
Yeah. There you go. I don't know. Yeah, so they have to help you lift that cross, and then you have to be able to have people that pour into you and you pour back into them. There's no just take. There has to be even exchanges. Like that's what I feel like. Sometimes you have to pour more into others, but it has to be like some kind of balance, but always led through God.
It's true. And, you know, I love that parable or that story that you just mentioned, because it reminds us that proximity matters. Studies show that when you put a low performer next to a high performer, the high performer's performance decreases by 25%. But when you put another high performer next to another high performer, the high performers increases by 15%. So this is where it shows that proximity really does matter. Boundaries are biblical. It really is. And so we need to stop trying to prove our worth through self-sacrifice, because Jesus has already proved that we're worth it. So this is where we have to make sure that we're surrounded by people who's going to help us get closer to God in all areas of our life. And there to remind us, there's some people in our lives that's going to help us evolve, and there's going to be people in our lives who's going to help us show us what it looks like when we don't. And they're going to be a reflection of that. So you got to remember that God didn't call you to be liked. He called you to be a light. And light by its very nature makes darkness uncomfortable.
Think about who's part of your inner circle, God had Peter, James, and John in his inner circle, right? Mm-hmm. But who's part of your inner circle? Are they just poking your ear with things that you shouldn't be hearing? Like, what are you watching? Are you wasting time on your mind? Like I always say, I don't watch TV because I feel like I get brain fried, I don't watch TV, I don't like to waste or create, in college, they taught us, every time you see something, it creates a little trail in your head. Mm-hmm. So every time you watch it and you see it again, it creates a new trail in your head. I don't want those trails in my head that are just brain wasters. You're wasting your brain. Stop watching that.
I don't want to say I disagree. I don't think I disagree, but I think I see it in a different light. I'm learning because I haven't heard from this aspect. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned about are people being a burden, or are they helping you carry that burden? Mm-hmm. And I am reminded what you just said. Christ had his inner circle: Peter, Paul, John. What were they before he called them to be apostles of the church? Right? Mm-hmm. They were all sinners. Mm-hmm.
And we're all sinners.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. But they were, some of the people called were, adulterers, thieves, tax collectors. He qualified the call, didn't call the qualified. Mm-hmm. So, I can just imagine that, some of their friends, right, when they heard hey, Christ called me to help him out, they were like, oh, no, you sure? You sure that's right? Mm-hmm. And I'm just, I'm reminded one of my siblings is having a rough time, and it's been a really big challenge for my parents. And it's been happening for years. And finally, there was a point where my parents we're done. We just have to give up. And I don't remember what it was, but something told my mother, just the Lord loves effort. Just keep on trying. You never know. And I think everyone is on their own journey, right? On our own journey with Christ. I think everyone's eventually going to come to Christ, right? But there's not a timeline for everyone to be at a certain point. So we have to be have to be open-minded, where people are at in certain parts of the journey, and just try to love them where they're at, definitely, and meet them where they're at, and just show them grace. Now, maybe not to the point where it's bringing us down, right? Because I think it could easily get to that point where, you're right, boundaries, that's important. And I like what you said, that boundaries are biblical. I haven't heard that before, and I like it, because it's incredibly hard for me to set boundaries, but let's not forget that, and no matter what case scenario, whether someone's being a burden or helping us carry this burden, is just to try to set a good example no matter what. And so that's just what I was thinking when we were talking. But
love it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that perspective. perspective.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just I think it's like everyday life. Something that we have to, like you said, it's not a timeline. It's not a rebus. It's not, something like what do you call it? Where they put the little directions on the wall for like little kids, to follow the guidelines.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a law. It's just something that we live by. But you know what? All those guidelines come from one place. Where do they come from?
Word.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes your calling is too heavy, but if you're with the wrong company, they're gonna burden you down. I work with everybody. Like we say, work with anybody willing to do good. I can be eating with the homeless at one moment and then eating with the billionaire at the next. And these ladies know that, I could, and my day changes. It's a wild day. It starts out, seriously, we could be feeding the homeless, giving out food. You witnessed that part, right? There was homeless people there. And then, boom, we can end up at some $10,000 ticket gala that somebody gave us, and just be in that presence. But so I don't cut anybody off. I work with anyone and everyone. So I've been there too, been there homeless, broke.
And trying to figure out what to wear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reminded, like, someone said something about, like, the difference between Muhammad and Christ. And I'm just paraphrasing. I'm going to mess this up. I know it. But the guy said, like, when Muhammad showed up, according to the Islam scripture, like, he showed up with, like, a sword, right? But when Jesus showed up, he showed up with a bucket to help people wash their feet. He washed people's feet. There's a different, like, there's something, like, something to learn from that.
Yes, in order to serve, in order to lead, you have to know how to serve first. And I actually have that picture from the Kingdom's prayer or the garden. I have that on my wall in front of my desk, and that's my daily reminder that if I'm going to lead, then I need to make sure that I'm leading them towards Christ. First and foremost, and don't be afraid to wash people's feet and meet them where they're at. But in the subject that we were talking about, as far as who's carrying your cross and having the discernment of who's in your inner circle, right? Because what happens is that we tend to enable people that we love, and we think we're doing it because we love them, but what happens is we end up getting exhausted because we're constantly giving, and then we turn around, and when we need them, we don't have them, or we're leaning on towards the wrong people. And one of the things that I saw that really resonated with me, that said, love doesn't mean enabling. Proverbs 19:19 says, hot-tempered people must pay the penalty. If you rescue them once, you will have to do it again. And I was like,
You got a lot of good stuff on there, Yes.
Yes. And so walking away isn't a weakness. It's often finding wisdom. And, 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, toxic people will corrupt you. It says, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. And, wickedness spreads like a virus. Psalm 1:1, it says, blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers. And that's a big one, because we have to make sure that we're not focused on taking care of everybody. Everybody has a different assignment. God's going to call you. He called you in the political realm. He called me in the business realm. We're all in different parts. So our circle of influence is going to all be different. So therefore, who we take with us in our inner circle, they need to be on the same level to help sharpen you. So when the time comes and you need leading on them, you're leading on good counsel.
What you said was remarkable. I'm reminded of a time when I was on city council. A really good friend of mine, we were talking about something that was happening in the city, and like I just disagreed with and she agreed with me too, just not on the level. And I remember her saying something along the lines. She's like, if we can't take care like of our own problems that we have right now, then how can we afford to take care of bring in more, right? Like why would we want to bring in more, right? And I just thought like, wow, like there's priorities, right? Like we gotta set priorities. And one thing that she said as well that has stuck with me is she says, it's perfectly okay to say no. Like sometimes no
Right.
is the right answer.
So true.
Like, and I feel like that's, when you talk about boundaries and set priorities, it's like no is just as fine. Like we have to be able to take care of ourselves, our bodies like temple, before we're able to. There's a quote, it's like, before you can love someone, you have to love yourself, right? So
Exactly.
Excellent.
I like your notes.
Jessica, you got anything, Jessica?
Yes. Well, what is it? I'm sorry.
She's about to start scrolling
No, I
again.
love Genevieve. That's why I bring Genevieve.
I love
too.
all her wisdom. Everything she
They
has to say
hate to
is
see her
beautiful.
scrolling. I tell you what.
No, I mean, I'm just sitting here and I'm inspired by everything. But I was thinking about how was it for you when you were in the city council and you had different personalities? Because here in San Antonio, our city council is just like, I don't know. I feel like it's like toddlers fighting all the time.
Tumultuous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to learn. I had to learn a lot, especially because it was a lot of people who were older than me, and like I also served with different councils. Like we had new council members, we had older council members, councilors who were just ending their terms, council members who were just got newly elected. So there was a lot of like diverse backgrounds and someone gave me advice to say, hey, like first year, just listen. Like don't try to be a rebel rouser. Don't try to to stir things up. Just listen, just learn. And I did that, and so I just listened, learned, and just figure out how what was the lay of the land. But it was really hard for me to figure out how to deal with people who some of these people could be my grandpa. Some of these people, like I went to school with their children or grandchildren.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you live in a small town, right? And it took me a while, like when there was disagreements, to like not get frustrated or taking it personally. And it probably wasn't until like the end of my second term where I just realized that, like, like we all want the same thing. We all want to live in a better city. We all want our city to be a better place. We all want our city to live, work, and worship. The best place to live, work, and worship. Like, but sometimes we just have different ways of going at it. We have different visions of how to accomplish that. And like every single one of these people are here for a reason. And like I just have to be able to just like realize that they just have a different opinion, and like I should listen to them, even like, and they should listen to me too. Like we should just have that civil discourse. The civil conversation.
Kind of like agree to disagree.
Yeah, agree to disagree. And I'll tell you what, there's been times. I remember there was one time we had a very heated, passionate discussion on city council, and it was a split vote, and it was pretty bad. And right at the end, the gavel goes, and then we're like, all right, boys, well, it was fun, and like we all just like y'all have a good weekend, and we just, we shook hands and just like because at the end of the day, like it's nothing was going to ruin the city. Like it wasn't the end of the world, right? Like we're just trying to serve the best we can, and like we have to just remember, like at the end of the day, like this what makes America so great is that we are a melting pot of ideas. Like our founding fathers didn't agree on every single thing, right? But what they did agree on is that we need to create a country, a free country with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
And so like we just have to be able to remind ourselves, like we're all different. But it was hard at first, not gonna lie. And it took me a while to like trying to figure out. It was probably just the like maturity, right? Like just like how young I was, and just trying to understand that, because I was just I was thrown in there, so yeah.
what about friends? Like your friends when you were doing all this? What kind of friends did you have?
So I have different kind of friends. So I have like my work friends.
Yeah.
I have like my personal friends. I have like my church friends. Like I have like different sects of friends. So my personal friends, like my core group, like I've known them since high school. I've known them for like 10 plus years now, like since I was a freshman in high school, and some of them are like liberals, like we think the exact opposite, and we have those heated discussions, and they tell me I'm stupid, and I tell them they're stupid. We have those funny conversations, and we talk about these things. But like that has helped me. Like we never we never hate each other. Like and when I say stupid, like jokingly, we don't actually believe that of each other. But it's just like I think that's helped me be able to understand like the other side. And that doesn't mean to say like we should water down our principles. Like it's incredibly important to stand firm in your beliefs. Like don't water them down. Like stand up. But it's also important to hear the other side and hear where people are coming from. And so there's that. And then I have my church friends who I love and adore, but like we pretty much agree on everything. So like we just talk about just random things in our life, business or church. And so there's that. And then just political friends that. And I will say that there was a time where I had to realize that there is a difference. There was a time where I thought like politics was consuming my life, and like I don't want it to be my identifying factor. Like I don't want it to be just who I am. Like there's so much more to you. Yeah, to me than just being that young councilman or being the young conservative, right? Like there's much more. Those things are important, right? But like I felt like that consumed me for a little bit, and so I had to learn to create boundaries and say, hey, like these. Like, it's totally fine to have these as my work friends. Totally fine to have these as my political friends. Totally fine to have these as, my personal friends. And every single one of them plays, an important role in my life. But,
Scaffolding role. Yeah. Alrighty, well, let's see here. We got before I wrap up, I'm going to have Genevieve mention the upcoming events that we are a part of.
So we're excited. There's two different events that you are a proud partner of. We have Business Professionals of San Antonio, which is happening next week, actually, on October 15th. Over at Smoke Sky Bar. Business Professionals of San Antonio is a largest networking group here. Every month we feature a different local nonprofit and a different local venue. And so $10 at the door goes directly to the nonprofit of the month. And this month we are so excited because we are going to have Fashion for Life. And this nonprofit is absolutely incredible. They help feature the latest designers out there, all standing up for a cause, standing up for all the survivors. We don't call them victims, we call them survivors, and giving them the tools and everything that they need. And then we also have Proverbs and Prophets, a networking event that's happening on October 16th at Ambassadors Coffee. This one is for kingdom-minded entrepreneurs. If you are a business leader or a community leader, I invite you to come join us at Ambassadors Coffee at 6 o'clock. This is a time for entrepreneurs to sharpen each other up as iron sharpens iron. Time to lift each other up when this weight feels heavy, to stand together, not just as a time of networking and fellowship, but a time to learn. We actually have a guest speaker, Sidney Franklin, coming in. He's a gospel singer that travels around the world using his gifts and talents to glorify God. So the last one we had was in August, so this is our second one. I'm very excited. This is a passion project. This is something that God had put in my heart to connect our community together and to make sure that God is in the center of it.
Super exciting. So I don't know yet. I'm gonna ask Saul if we could take the radio show to Proverbs and Prophets
That
because we miss it
Saul said
every
yes.
Thursday. I'm pretty sure he'll say yes, but sometimes we lose connection there, so that's the hard part. Because when me and Jessica went live with the mayor at her location, we ended up losing signal. So I was like,
As long
somehow
as
the networks take us
as long as you
down.
have strong internet, right?
Yeah.
That should be good.
Well, somehow the radio networks take us down. So if it's not the radio, then it's YouTube or Facebook. So
It's
one
China. Yeah, they're hacking in.
Right?
Yeah.
They're
hacking in.
All right. Well, as we close today, I just want to reflect on who's helping you carry your cross. You know, I always talk about the mountains of influence because the truth is that your cross isn't just personal, it's purposeful. And it's connected to your calling. And some of the 7 mountains of influence that help shape the culture of where we live in. And I always believe that you should work with each mountain to have somebody in your life that's purposeful. And I truly believe in mentorship. So in faith, who's lifting your arms in prayer when your weight gets heavy? In family, who's speaking life and truth over your home instead of chaos? In education, who's teaching you the truth and not just a trend, you know, like a DEI trend? In government, who's standing with you for righteousness and integrity? In media, who's helping you spread the light, not gossip or fear? In arts and entertainment, who's inspiring you to create purpose? And thank you. And in business, this one's for Genevieve then. In business, who's helping you build wealth and wisdom and not compromise? You know, so we've learned some lessons over even this short year. You know, even connections matter when it comes to business because somebody can get jealous and envious and take down your whole tour. Anyway,
Absolutely.
so I want to thank you for tuning in to Red Lip Latina Radio. We'll see you next Thursday from 6 to 7. Thank you, Joelle, for being on our show, driving
you for
down from
having me.
Houston.
Thank you for
Joelle
having me.
Castro in the flesh, guys. Take your picture now because you might not see him for a while. Maybe December I'll see you, right? And then thank you, Genevieve, for joining us again with all your words of wisdom. And thank you, Jessica. All right, Otto, we're out. That's a wrap for today on Red Lip Latina Radio. We tackled the issues, we lifted up our community, and we kept it bold, real, and unapologetic. But the conversation doesn't stop here. We stay loud, stay proud, and stay engaged. Follow us, join the movement, and let's keep making noise for San Antonio, Texas, and the whole USA. Until next time, keep your head high, your lipstick bold, and your voice even bolder. Nos vemos, familia.
Antonio.com para una cotización personalizada.